Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. I was finally able to come up with enough data to take a look at the best Hearthstone decks after the Druid nerf and after the Yogg-Saron nerf. And what has happened on the ladder in these past few days? Well, Ramp Druid is gone. There's no more Ramp Druid. Yogg-Saron is mostly gone. I thought that a 9-mana Yogg-Saron would still be playable in control decks, and I have actually still played myself Yogg-Saron in control decks, and yeah, it is sort of playable, yeah. But in the most popular list, it's simply not used at all. And then there's some innovation at the top, but overall, a little bit stagnant, I would say. So there's a lot of decks that have not really changed that much, but let's take a look at all of the best decks. And coming at number 15, we have a Demon Hunter deck. You don't see a lot of Demon Hunters on the ladder. We saw a couple of Demon Hunters at the Masters Tour and they did not perform too well. And Outcast Demon Hunter, there was one Outcast Demon Hunter at the Masters Tour and we got to see Outcast Demon Hunter lose a game to an Anomaly. Yeah. Double Shifter Zeros in hand, blocking the Outcast cards. You can also get a 10 Ghost Yogg-Saron into your hand, blocking your Outcast cards. Should be a little bit better once 28.0 comes along and the anomalies are finally gone, but Outcast Demon Hunter is still somehow struggling, somehow finding its way to playability anyway. The deck itself, of course, has not changed at all for quite some time, but Halveria and Felerin, they're still pretty good cards. And coming in at number 14, we have Totem Shaman. Totem Shaman is another deck that has not changed at all. Totem Shaman has been going for like an expansion and a half or something, and it just keeps chugging along. If you crafted Totem Shaman and you figured, hey, I'm going to craft one deck, what's a deck that's going to be playable? Well, Totem Shaman has definitely been playable throughout. It hasn't been absolutely top tier at any point, but it has consistently been able to deliver above 50% win rates and climb the ladder. And at number 13 we have Plague Death Knight. No changes to Plague Death Knight. The best Plague Death Knight list is still this full Unholy list. The list with double Unholy runes and one Blood rune is now significantly weaker. So this is it. This is really it. Patchwork was stronger when you had Druid stuff to snipe, when you had Yogg-Sarons to snipe. Now those are not existent on the ladder anymore, so Patchwork has less things to do, which means that running that one Blood rune is not as useful, and this is going quite well. On HRW statistics, one note about those, they listed this now as an Unholy Death Knight instead of Plague Death Knight, so there's a little bit of some weirdness going on with archetype recognition with Death Knight and with Paladin that I noticed, so you need to be a little bit careful when interpreting some of the stats unless you look into specific decks. But anyway, Plague Death Knight, it's still playable. And at number 12 we have Thaddius Warlock. I'm not a huge fan of Thaddius Warlock myself. Every time I think, should I put Thaddius Warlock a couple of positions higher? And then I'm like, but maybe not. Because Thaddius Warlock, it's quite polarized. Every time, Thaddius Warlock has some good matchups, some popular good matchups, like now Enrage Warrior. Enrage Warrior is a popular, strong deck. Thaddius Warlock is good against that. Hey, that's awesome. However, it also always has some really bad matchups against popular decks like Mech Rogue and Rainbow Mage. So yeah, very polarized. You can have great success with Thaddius Warlock if you hit the right matchups, and you can also have miserable time with it. The list itself hasn't really found anything new for some time, and it's just Thaddius and stuff. Number 11 we have Undead Priest. Undead Priest has been pretty strong actually on the ladder ever since the addition of Soulburner Varia in the miniset, and it's quite an expensive deck nowadays, isn't it? I mean, it's running 3 legendary cards plus 1 from the core set, but those legendary cards really give it much of its power, and without it it's kind of lackluster. So some aggro, some cheap cards that allow it to be very aggressive, and then those legendaries coming and finish the job. And at number 10 we have Control Warlock. I recently played some XL Control Warlock and I had a fun time playing that. My results were actually pretty much in line with what regular Control Warlock should be able to perform on the ladder, but this regular list, only 30 cards, running stuff like Ignis, running stuff like Jaraxxus, even though Jaraxxus is really not performing, but like, I don't think Jaraxxus belongs in this deck, to be honest. But no one has been able to popularize at least a list without Jaraxxus that would be better, so yeah, late expansion times. not many changes going on, but Control Warlock is playable if that's the style that you want to play. Although I think the Excel list that I built that's featured in a previous video is more fun than this one. And at number 9 we have the strongest Death Knight deck, and the strongest Death Knight deck is still Unholy Death Knight. I mean, why shuffle plagues into your opponent's deck? Okay, sometimes they draw many plagues and you're like, hey, they got the Frost Plague just in time and they couldn't afford to play their sweet card. And in order to make up for all of those games, well, you have tons and tons of games where you shuffle plagues and they don't draw any. So, as an alternative, you can just swarm the board, go all Rancher on them, go all Nerubian Swarm Guard on them, go Grave Strength on them, and win games. Because winning games is fun. Number 8 we have Drum Druid, and if you looked at the Master's Tour, in Master's Tour the Drum Druids that were brought to Master's Tour were built to counter a little bit slower decks, built to counter combo style decks. They were running Topiary the Shrubagazer, and this Drum Druid is more optimized for ladder play. Ladder play is a little bit faster, not so many control decks, not so much use for Topiary. Topiary is a slow card, just optimizing zombie at the start, getting your drum circles, and drum circling away. It's also fun to see finally Aerosoilizer getting the recognition that it truly deserves, and Plot of Sin being ditched all the way to where it belongs, and Aerosoilizer being in the deck. At number 7 we have Control Warrior, and not just any Control Warrior, because right now, according to statistics, it looks like the time and the place is finally here. It's the time and the place to put General Vesax into a Control Warrior. Yeah, because sometimes you just don't go all the way for that combo so quickly anyway, and Vesax is just going to come in, do a bunch of stuff for you, and help you win games. Awesome to see Vesax now play in the most successful Control Warrior list at the moment. And at number 5 we have Rainbow Mage. Rainbow Mage doesn't like facing Control Warriors, but Control Warrior is not that popular and Druid is gone, so Rainbow Mage is having a better time. Sure, Rainbow Mage also lost Yogg-Saron, like no Yogg in this list, but Rainbow Mage just decided, well, previously I had Yogg-Saron and then I had to decide between do I put Nasiar into my deck or do I put Norgannon into my deck, so why not both? No Yogg-Saron, room for both of those legendary cards, and Rainbow Mage doing fine. Number 5 we have Arcane Hunter, and I really tried to look hard for all the variations of Arcane Hunter because there are many, and I was quite disappointed. Because it clearly looks to me like Yogg-Saron no longer belongs in Arcane Hunter, that's quite clear on that. Prison of Yogg-Saron does not belong in Arcane Hunters, that's quite clear on that. Prison Breaker no longer belongs in Arcane Hunter, stats are also quite clear on that. So I would have loved to see more lists that don't feature any of those 3 cards. This is the best performing list that I could find out of Arcane Hunters, and this does not feature any of those 3 cards. But I'm not completely certain that this is the way to build Arcane Hunter either, because there's still the banana alternative, but I couldn't find a nice banana list that would have enough statistics that wouldn't run Prison Breakers at least. So I think there's a chance that Arcane Hunter with the bananas, with the monkeys, is going to be better than this Arcane Hunter, but someone would just have to build it without using the cards that were nerfed. So I think Arcane Hunter has some room for refinement, but already it is one of the best decks in the game. Then we have Pure Paladins, and there's a couple of different types of Pure Paladins around, and Aegis replace archetype recognition with these Pure Paladins is a little bit off sometimes. This deck can show up as Silverhand Paladin, it can show up as Pure Paladin, then there's Aggro Paladins which are also Pure Paladins, so yeah, that gets a little bit confusing at times. Anyway, there's 2 main styles that you build Pure Paladin right now. Either you build it based on tokens, like this one, you have Master for Battle, you have your Warhorse Trainer, you have a Buffet Beacon, so you're getting a lot of Silverhand recruits, and you're swarming the board. And Amitus is great in that kind of deck. Countess is always great in Pure Paladin. And this is a perfectly valid strategy, although this is only the second best way to build Pure Paladin. Because the stronger way to build Pure Paladin is to go tall. Now there's no Yogg threat either for going tall, so you're going tall and you have stuff like Guardian's Grace that can give minions lots of stats practically for free, and then you have Keeper Strength. So when you build a big minion and you Keeper Strength it, then boom, it just clears the board.
And that means that this kind of Aggro Paladin is actually pretty strong against decks like Druid. Druid builds a big board. Well, you respond by buffing a big minion and clearing that board. So the same goes with Thaddius Warlock. Hell, nice Thaddius you have there. Ooh, I'm just going to build this gigantic Silverhand Recruit or whatever, and boom. Just boom away all the Thaddiuses or anything. So this is quite explosive and really very, very strong. However, it is the number 2 that's the most interesting deck, I think, this week, and that's the big Mech Rogue. So, we have Mech Rogue, and Mech Rogue can snowball out of control, and Mech Rogue can also use Coppertail Snoops to gain some coins. And with coins you can play stuff early, and you can also play Scourge Illusionists, so you have a couple of ways to get something big with Death Rattle out early. And why not have a Thunderbringer? So bring your Thunderbringer, bring your Krakatoa, bring your Neptune Tidehunter, and just instantly win the game. I think this is the ultimate refinement of Mech Rogue. Mech Rogue had really been searching for, okay, what on earth to do with those last final few slots, because that Scourge Illusionist Mothership package was just not getting it done. But now the package is replaced with Scourge Illusionist, Thunderbringer, Neptune, and you already had Krakatoa before, so it's just pure genius. Couple of changes, nothing much, but the deck just feels really renewed, feels really different, and feels very, very strong. I was super hesitant whether I should place this as number 2 or number 1. On the other hand, I really like the matchup spread on this deck. I think this deck may have the best matchup spread overall. Then again, statistics were telling me that overall the number 1 deck is stronger, like its highs are higher and its lows are not that low, so when you even it out across the entire ladder, it just wins more games, even though this has fewer weaknesses. But just a wonderful deck, and making use of Thunderbringer, so what is there not to like? But the very best deck of them all right now, Enrage Warrior. Enrage Warrior, there's a couple of ways to build this nowadays. You obviously want to have some of that combo-ish ability at the end with the Battle-Worn Facelesses and some charge minions. It looks like the list with 2 copies of Grace Wretch is better than the one with Wretches and Grommash. In this list, the Grommash has been replaced by a Roaring Applause. And what does that do? Well, it makes for less flashy plays, but it increases your consistency, because you're now able to draw more cards, you're able to cycle more cards, you're able to get through your deck faster, you're able to get to your win conditions faster, and then you just ultimately win more games, even though you don't win them in as flashy fashion, because you don't have that Grom and make copies of Grom and boom. Just wonderful, wonderful things happening. But still, Enrage Warrior, huge number of favorite matchups, has only 2 real weaknesses. One of them is Thaddius Warlock, the other one is the number 2 deck, the Big Rogue. And yeah, it's just very, very strong at the moment. And the best deck, I have to say this is the best deck, because overall, looking at its win rate against the entire field, it is. But Big Rogue is very, very close, and that looks like the most fun new thing to happen this week. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.